You're gonna clean this, right?
Okay. Yes, I'm using this.
Thank you.
Hey, so I want to have a discussion about police misconduct or the involvement of organized crime, or at least not me. The feeling that there is a group using a spectrum that is involved in organized crime, or even officers with badges, and it's becoming to where it's as they're involved in actually fabricating real crimes, actual crimes, or at least arrests also. And there's actually a group of inmates need to be recited also because um, I have been on ankle monitor in the past for something minor. But the thing is, I get the idea that there is a brothel or even a feeling of a porn, or I'm not into it, but you can actually get involved or at least check out how many officers are at least um, are involved. But the thing is, it's a feeling of sexual misconduct, or even judges, or you can even do your research, but you actually find history of sign of sexual misconduct. The thing is, when there is a actual spy ring slash cyber ring, or the feeling of espionage, or let's really be accurate about it, because there's actual inmates, or let's say if they're not inmates, but there's some are actually going through also harassment, also through a spectrum. Um, I would never think I'll be in that scenario, because you would think, son of a correctional officer, you would never really be targeted to live that lifestyle. And yeah, so it's just something else, because I'm getting the impression that they're using a style to target me through a spectrum, or at least there is a group, or obviously there's a feeling of organized crime even through a spectrum of the radio, including the television, of overlapping. The feeling there is, say, an officer or a brothel, pirate radio, or pirate TV, where there's overlapping, or if it's not pirate. But the thing is, I like to share geniuses, share their thought. You know, um, so the thing is, there's a spectrum that does risk, you know, fabricating crimes, but the thing is that also it's nasty if there's such thing as digital kidnapping, and there's identities of by there's a such a there's a cyber throne that happens to go through some type of sabotage, or there's a group, because there's a group involved. I'm not involved. The thing is, when you get the idea there's a spectrum, it's forming into sexual harassment. I feel like I did a little bit of time in when I had an ankle monitor, I was targeted by an officer, and I kind of convinced their their officers were involved in actual doing pornos. I will and go visit the home detention in Elk Grove, California. Um, at least pick up with the inertia, or at least visit, because you'll get the idea that there is some kind of sexual misconduct, but then they're targeting me as um, their feeling of sexual harassment through a spectrum against a Sheldon, or even to actually cause danger or threat to Sheldon, to where I actually was getting the feeling of threat in the jail. I never I haven't really even had the opportunity to greet anyone to convince I'm a bad person. I'm going through the feeling of a spectrum that's keeping me away from people, or at least greeting myself, or even having a feeling that there's an approachable side of me, or convinced there is. But the thing is, it's what's keeping me, keeping in, or in, and then when I look at some of the others neighbors around, or if it's not your neighbor, this would be self to when you're in the neighborhood, it's not able to speak up to anything that just is in your that comes in close in your contact in a way. It's actually you mold your own community in a way. But the thing is, when there's a spectrum trying to remold the community, and then there's a feeling of antisocial, um, there is a feeling of a hate crime. There's a feeling to be straightforward of it. There's a spectrum trying to create a hate crime through against a Sheldon, or it's targeting me where there feels like things can be unsafe, or I can, there's a threat involved against a shelter with spectrum, and really call it out. The feeling that there's TVs, radios, even the feeling every time when there's a airplane flying over me, there's an intruder interrupting the spectrum of the aircraft in each aircraft, and it's as if these officers know it. And every time there's a helicopter around, these officers seem like they're working together with the person that is actually harassing each other. And when I was actually, it's as if there's an issue about having honesty and the safety of gaining dignity in the community, and also the children that don't have fathers or actually don't have mothers that are actually, they think of a Sheldon, or they think of a nurse that had something that, or a coach that makes think that there's some type of normality, or think that there is a to be mindful, at least to keep a balance in the world, at least to at least try to get the peak of if a kid is missing a mother or father, at least try to have effort to have alternative to switch it, because there's elite mindsets out there that there's dominant mindsets, but how you use it, and if you use it the right way, and then there's another guy that looks like a super stud, or you're taking but the thing is, I'm getting to at least be aware of spectrum tests, because there's a spectrum wave talking outside to inside, or at least there's a feeling there's a new satellite. Maybe it's the Russian satellite. No offense, at least check it out, or at least when you get the idea how to identify it, then you know how to use it. So then don't be frightened to identify what the heck is up there, because then you get the idea how to actually use the technology that's actually being misused against you. So at least catch on, be sharp enough to really have a dominant mind, or at least a elite mind, or at least if someone else actually hears you, or at least could themselves, their own family, kind of just is ready reflecting off it. But the thing is, yeah, I don't mean to be ranting at all. I feel there's a spectrum over me. I guess that can create a feeling of ranting. But the thing is that it seems like I'm pretty accurate what I'm trying to tell you. It can really wear a person out through a spectrum, like consistently. What I've been experiencing, and these officers, when they show up, I mean, every day there's consistently there's a spectrum of a hate crime. And these officers, and I say that there's a correctional officer, son of a correctional officer, son of a veteran, let's think about the effort of we're still, trying to get the idea that there is a issue going on. I'm having a feeling of cell damage. So even if there's a spectrum test, I would like to prove that this spectrum been harming me, or at least risking me from cancer, or at least giving me some type of skin or face, some type of cell face damage. Because I'm starting to have real face damage. You might not say, I'm starting to have wrinkles, and that's not normal to have wrinkles. I was actually a little bit frightened. I'm just only want to go outside and say, there might be a pretty girl out there might think of me, but that's when I didn't ever see a wrinkle on your face. Now it's to the point where it's such a strong pulverization of intensity through a spectrum. It feels that it's definitely harmful, and once you identify, have a spectrum test, and you get the idea that there is a spy simulating through this spectrum, and they're having some kind of open discussion to have some type of dominance over a cyber throne, or at least to be aware of it, because it's an intruder, but it's causing a big nuisance, or at least a safety in communities, or even children that don't have father figures or mothers, or father figures or mother figures. But the thing is, think of them, and think of the community, and think how awful a spectrum can reshape each family, so it can throw things off. But the thing is, to recover, we want to get things back to party mode. We want to get things back to embrace. Some things might be different, I guess, right now, because right now. I barely can even watch the news. No offense. Probably because I'm having the feeling there's a spectrum talking over me, and then there's some kind of electronic spectrum of intruder mirroring the device of a television of news. So it's creating a feeling of disoriented, but that's not a mental illness. So let's think about the communities going. If there's a group going through similar inertia, or even the feeling if it's not similar, then they know I'm actually being harassed or there's a hate crime. And the feeling that when you know it, that's that things are unsafe and that's should be entitled to something.